How about now, chat? Can you hear anything whatsoever? Let me know, let me know. Immediately going off rails.
That's a good start.
That's a good start, that's a good start. What's up, chat? Welcome back to another live stream. And I'm here with my very good friend, Matthew Napoli, which is obviously a key figure in the PHP world. And we are supposed to come to Budapest, literally to celebrate my birthday. We are having a lot of fun, to be honest. And we decided to kind of share some of that fun with you guys, because I do miss you guys. And, I decided to invite Napoli to this stream to talk about asynchronous programming. And I was just saying that I have done a bunch of asynchronous programming, but not actually in PHP. So I have done, Python asynchronous programming with event looping, obviously with JavaScript. We have promises and everything. And I want to kind of start with that. First of all, Matthew, obviously I do know you, but for those who don't know, what do you do, man?
Yeah, I'm very excited to be there, just to get started. Hey, everyone. My name is Mathieu and I'm French. That's why the name sounds really French. I work part-time with customers on PHP applications, Laravel applications, love that. Part-time on open source projects. So I work on Bref, I work on PHPDI, I work on many open source projects. And open source is part of my life. It's really cool to work with the community and have fun, whether it's at conferences or even online. It's really cool.
So literally, we just ran a script to see how many downloads Matthew have on the PHP world, and he said to me, 2 billion downloads on packages. So many of the things that you use from frameworks like Laravel, but also in the other, things like PHP Unit, actually rely on some of the packages from Matthew. You told me Deep Clone, if I don't...
Deep Copy.
Deep Copy,
yeah. That's something I created 10 years ago or even 15 years ago. I don't remember.
In the PSR container interface,
PSR
right?
Container.
I want to start by checking that one, actually.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
This one is in every framework.
Every container?
Laravel.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Chat, do not hesitate to interact with us during the live stream. We have literally 3 chats open.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. CVT Mal, FF Parento, how you doing? Hey, Joel, nice to see you as well. We have a couple of people as well on YouTube. Smith, the sound is fixed. So, thank you so much for the feedback over there. Prod Ealis, what's up, dude? How you doing? EE17122, nice to see you. Oh, you went holiday this week in Portugal? That's awesome, man. Have fun. David, how you doing? Nice to see you as well. Chat, I want to start to see and talk about PSRs. PSR is kind of a controversial topic in my opinion, but let's see a little bit. All right, chat. If anything goes off rails during the live stream, let me know. Either that be, sharing the screen or potentially, the audio, everything, you just let me know, all right? So let's share the screen here real quick. Obviously, for today's live stream, we have, PHP Storm, we have Junie, we have everything we love about this. Let's move here into my Safari. I want to search a little bit about PSRs and PHP. So I do know that PSRs stand for PHP Standard Recommendations, but in all honesty, it's just interfaces, right?
Yeah, exactly. Interfaces to make life easier. And a common misconception that we may have as PHP developers is that PSRs are for PHP developers. And they are not, they are for package maintainers. The people like you and me that write packages, well, except maybe PSR 0 and 4 and the coding standards, they are for everyone. But most of the PSRs, they are for interoperability between the open source projects themselves. So it's not like PSR container is about how do we standardize in a way, how we get stuff from containers. And
which one is the container one?
It's 11.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that's this one. And so it's not really meant for when I'm writing a project and I will suddenly switch containers, just like you suddenly switch databases.
So if we're interacting between frameworks, make sure the frameworks have all the same specifications, basically.
Let's say I write, and one thing to mention as well, that's why PSRs are a bit controversial, because this was written 10 years ago, I think.
Oh, really?
And 10 years ago, the landscape was a bit different at the time, like the framework for the landscape for frameworks. So we had Symfony, we had Laravel, obviously, but there was at the time more, more activity on how to build your own framework or how to assemble packages with PSR 7 and stuff. And so there was more demand from package maintainers on how we decouple from framework. And if I
Gotcha.
were to package, like, you know, Glide, do you remember Glide? Like the image manipulation library thing?
Oh, okay.
Or DOM PDF or stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
How do I decouple from a specific framework and how can I support all frameworks at once?
Gotcha.
That's where the need came.
Which comes for a question, chat. Did you guys ever use directly a PSR interface framework or not yet? People are saying no screen. What that even means? Oh my God, it is literally no screen. I'm gonna fix that, chat. Thank you.
Very
thank you.
good. We're super good.
Oh my God, this is like streaming outside of my office is just a nightmare, like literally, because everything is just, you know, not working as expected. So I'm gonna fix that real quick and have you guys, you know, watching everything as expected. So this would be...
And I will tell the history maybe of PSR container while you do that.
Go ahead.
So the thing started as a project called Container Interrupt, which you can find on GitHub. And it was, at the time, it was really hard to create PSRs because everyone wanted to create PSRs, but then frameworks had to get on board. And we had a lot of trouble coming up with the PSR 11. So what we did was we created a separate project called Container Interrupt. And we wanted to show how easy it was to add that interface to frameworks like Symfony and Laravel and more of those. And so we did the container interrupt thing for a few years and it got a lot of adoption. And then people were like, okay, now we don't really want to have a third-party thing called container interrupt. Like, what is this? So let's make it official and let's create the PSR. And it took like, I don't know, maybe 5 years to make it happen. And now it's just... Yeah.
So, Shad, does any of you have used PSR standards interfaces directly? I'm going to be honest, Matthew. You know, obviously, we use PSR. I think it's 1. If you guys use Laravel Pint, we'll obviously support PSR 1. I think it's another one, and then it's the 12,
The
I
12,
think.
yeah.
Exactly. So all of the coding style fixers you might use with Laravel, all of them use this PSR, you know, recommendation. So if I click, for example, on the PSR 12, you will see things like, you know, I go all the way down. I see things like, yeah, there is no hard limit on line length, but the soft limit line needs to be 120 characters and shouldn't be longer than 80 characters, for example. Indentation with 4 spaces, all of us uses this, but we kind of ignore a little bit that came from this specification. So cool stuff.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have started doing something where in my tests, I don't know if you've done that, but like in my tests, though I have tried Pest and I use it in some projects, but not all of them. Some that are using PHP unit.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Which framework do you use for testing?
Like I have both because of different projects.
If you start a new one?
Last one I started with Pest, but I use PHP Storm a lot. And I know there's a plugin and there's been like huge effort to bring parity. But there were some things that are so frustrating. Oh my God. So if you want to run a single test,
You just click on it.
so it works, but I think there's a bug where if there's an error, like the test fails, you cannot click and go to the line where it failed. You know?
Oh, okay.
Like small things, which everything is about the small things. Every day, everything.
Okay.
So anyway, I really like Pest because I've used Jest as well and things like to me, using a class for tests makes no sense because it's just the tools that we had. We want to group things together. Let's create a class, but we don't need a class, obviously. So to me, it's just the little tooling things like the user experience that is 99% there, but there's like 1 or 2 things that really frustrates me.
Nati, do you remember like when we didn't have PSR and we used to declare variables with underscores?
Yeah.
Honestly, Shad.
You like it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. So I have started doing things where I step out of the PSRs and the usual
By the way, Shad,
standards.
what do you like? Do you prefer with variables with underscores or studly cap? Oh, capital case.
So
right?
what I hate actually is that in Laravel, it's not consistent. Like the attributes for the models, they are like this, and then any variable is camel case. That's frustrating. It should be the same thing everywhere. But I agree that this is more readable.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny, like when we talk about arrays, for example, let's say, for example, we have user or whatever, everyone kind of uses snake case. You know what I mean? Like here, for example, if I had a first name or whatever, people kind of use
that's natural.
underscores. It's like natural,
Yes,
exactly.
and then for variables we do something different. I agree. I would change that if I could. Same thing. So what
Smells like PHP 5.
Yeah, but if you what I like about these things is my example in PHP unit test. I don't write public, like public function, whatever. I don't write public anymore. I don't write.
You don't write the visibility.
You don't need the visibility because it's not supposed to be a class.
That's something I will never understand about the PHP police. Is that everyone tells you that you should have this public thing, like literally before any function.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, I agree.
Like you can literally have this.
Yeah. Yeah, because the argument is we should be explicit, blah, blah, blah.
What do you think, Shad? Do you guys like to have the public or not?
Cases, but yeah, in most cases, yeah.
Honestly, like on Python, for example, they don't use this. Even on sometimes when you're doing JavaScript, you just don't declare the
Or one thing we could do is like you keep public, but you remove the function keyword, just like in TypeScript.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be. This is not supported literally. Like removing the public thing, we can do it, but removing the function, we cannot do it.
But ideally, it should work.
Oh yeah, it would be cool if it would work. Yeah. There is a few things I would change in PHP, man. I think, like for example, the construct, the way
I don't like the name.
The name is fucked up, right? What do you think, Shad? What do you think? What do you think about the constructor name? It's kind of weird. Like, why is like double underscore and then called construct? You know, would be kind of cool to see like new or whatever. By the way, if you had a name to give to a constructor, what name it would be?
Okay.
Shad,
to me, okay.
Right on the chat, by the way.
Yeah. Don't say it.
Okay.
I think the answer is obvious, and I think if you say something different, you are wrong, my friend. Okay.
Okay.
What should it be?
Now you are scaring me. I'm supposed to say something.
Yeah. Chat. Tell me like the obvious answer. What should it be?
Okay, so
like the name for the constructor.
So okay, there's a few people saying
the name of the class I don't like because then when you change
the
class
name of the class,
you have to rename the constructor, and you can actually do that in PHP, I think, or it was maybe
literally a lot of people are saying the name of the class, like literally.
Nobody agrees with me. Okay,
but what do you mean, Chad? Like you mean that this should be called user?
But it works, or it used to work. That's how it worked in PHP 4 or 5.
You think it still works?
I don't know if it still works.
Should we run a test real quick?
No, but then you rename the class and you have to change another line, which is annoying, and it makes a
who renames classes anyways, right? PHP Storm does that for you real quick as well.
No,
do you mind
you have a point.
Do you mind if I see that real quick?
Okay, so nobody agrees with me, so obviously I'm wrong, but I think it should be named new. New.
Just
you
new?
call new my class, then it should be new, the function name.
Let me see. Okay. So I'm going to type here example.php, PHP function, class user, for example. So what you're saying is that back in the days, this would work?
Yep. And you can remove the return because there's
so no return.
Yep.
So if I do dump, like divar dump, for example, like this, I'm going to pass through it. It would be crazy if that happens, by the way.
I don't know if that was removed, but let's give it a try.
Okay. What do you think, Shad? Do you think this will work? If it does, it's kind of mind-blowing. Kind of, old PHP stuff. No. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Okay. I think
that was removed in some PHP version, I guess.
So do you think PHP at some point supported this?
I'm like real quick. 99...
Have you used Juni, by the way?
No. Show me.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, because I use Cursor, but I want to use PHP Storm.
So Juni is like Cursor in the sense that it's an AI assistant. The only difference is that it's well integrated with PHP Storm. And something that I like about Juni is that they have this choose split screen where they accept the prompt on the left and they accept the commands on the right. They detail the plan on the left, and they actually execute the plan on the right.
Okay.
So if you ask, for example, to a to-do application, he will tell you something like, I'm going to create the models, and then I'm going to create the controllers, and then I'm going to create whatever. So you see the progress, and on the right, you see the actual things being executed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask here, and you have the code mode or ask mode. Right now I'm literally on the ask mode. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what people are saying on the chat, by the way. So Code Source here is saying that the name should be called init, not bad.
Yeah.
Init is actually a very solid one. Redizio is saying that double underscore is supposed to be reserved for functions, if I recall correctly.
Underscore?
To be
Oh yeah,
reserved-
reserved function. Yeah, like constructor, set, get.
Yeah, but you can,
special the
but
magic functions.
But you can have underscore functions that are not reserved functions. Like I can have my own double underscore function if I want to.
Yes, so because I think the original logic was like in JavaScript. So double underscore is internal.
That's so good.
Single
That's
underscore
so
is
good.
private.
That's so
and then
good,
it's,
yeah. It's like Python as well.
Yeah,
Come here a little
that's-
bit to the left because I'm afraid that you are not. Let me see. Can you show the other?
Yeah, there you go. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. See?
Yeah.
I knew it. Come a little bit to the left, to here. Okay. So let's ask Junie, did PHP at some point supported constructor names with the same name of the class? So again, on Junie, you have literally the code mode or ask mode. So the ask mode doesn't actually execute anything
Yeah,
or
okay.
changes files or whatever. We are literally in ChatGPT mode at the moment, you know?
Nice.
Initial is also something people are saying. Handler as well. What else we have here? Victor is saying, I'm old. Dude, welcome to the club. I'm literally 35. Did 35 yesterday, so, you know, it used to be the name of the class, trust me. Let me see. All right, the answer from Junie was, PHP did support constructors with the same name as the class in older versions, PHP 4 or in early versions of PHP 5. The constructor method had to have the same name of the class, for example, user. So this shit was supported at some point. That's actually insane. So PHP 7, this style of constructor was deprecated, showing the deprecation when the user is using something like this. And finally, in PHP 8, which is the version we are using at the moment, does no longer allows you to do this, completely removed. Only the underscore constructor method is recognized as a constructor effectively. Interesting.
Yeah.
Sharek is saying that you don't look like 35, you look like 27 and 28. Yesterday, we actually met some people and we asked like, how old do you think I am? And they told us like 29, right?
Yeah, 29 for me, and you were 29 as well?
Yeah, I think so. In the 20s as well. That's good, chat. Thank you so much. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Judizo is saying, I've tried Junie on WebStorm and it works great. Just waiting for the release of PHP Storm.
Same, yes.
Yeah, so again, by the way, chat, I literally published a video about Junie. So if you guys go to videos on my YouTube channel, you will see literally the new AI editor by JetBrains, Junie, which is potentially a cursor killer. That video is, you know, viewership-wise is going very well. So I really appreciate your support. By the way, chat, if you don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro. I'm a PHP and Laravel developer. And today I'm here with my very good friend, Matthew, to speak about asynchronous programming. We are obviously
We are off track.
off track already, but we are literally, you know, big fans of PHP. And as such, we decided to actually bring today a PHP topic, which is asynchronous programming in PHP. And Matthew, I want to start by literally, I hope you are an expert on the topic, because on PHP I'm not. So I have done asynchronous programming on Python, right? And other languages as well. So how different is the asynchronous PHP stuff from what I would find, for example, in Python?
Yeah. The main thing I would say is my experience is JavaScript and TypeScript. I don't know anything about Python.
Okay.
But the main thing I would say is that like TypeScript, JavaScript is built around asynchronous programming. That's how the
You
language
cannot
works.
do,
Yeah.
or maybe you can.
You can, but it's
You wouldn't
like
do it.
everything that you do in JavaScript in real life, whether it's Node on the backend or even the front end is extremely reactive because everything you do, there is nothing blocking. If you block your page or web page in the React app or the Vue.js application, then the app is dead. So everything in JavaScript is extremely asynchronous oriented, and PHP is completely different, like from historical reason. And we've all built stuff that is synchronous, linear, line after line, and so you can do asynchronous programming in PHP. With libraries like we are going to talk about Amp and React PHP.
This is
and
Amp,
then
right? Yeah.
Yes, this is Amp. Amped or Amp.
So you can
Amp.
do, but you need a framework like
Yes.
Amp. Because
You
chat
actually
is
don't.
saying like asking if we are
Swool.
going to use Swool.
Yeah,
So
Swool is a
Swool
good question.
also allows you to do that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Swool is like a PHP extension, but also a very deep rewrite of some core features of PHP, and Swole is very, very close to how Node works.
What is the difference between OpenSwole and Swole?
Do you want to get into it? And Swole has native functions. Like Swole is much closer to Node. Like you have native functions to do asynchronous programming, or like, yeah, even maybe Go coroutines. So
same style, yeah.
The thing is, if you go with Swole, your application is Swole all the way forever, and you have to rethink everything that you do. It's like the difference between PHP and JavaScript. Let me give you one example. So when I started writing JavaScript on the backend, like a few years ago, one thing that completely shocked me is that in JavaScript, let's say you write a controller and you want to read a file because you want to read the config file or whatever, you want to do an SQL query, you want to do whatever. If it is not asynchronous, if you do something synchronous, just read a file.
Yeah, you
block the entire application for every user of the application. So it's not like, oh, let me do a little bit of asynchronous here. That's super great. I can do stuff in parallel and I feel so good. It's like, if you don't, the application is dead.
Right.
You don't have a choice. You have to make everything asynchronous.
So in PHP you do, because basically we rely on things like PHP FPM, which would potentially just block the thing for that user only, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have different processes, like one request is one process.
Yeah.
So if you block the process, then only that request is being blocked. The rest is... So...
By the way, Shad, does any of you have done asynchronous programming with PHP? I have actually done a little bit with Laravel concurrency facade.
Oh, yes.
So
nice.
Laravel concurrency facade literally allows you to do concurrency using the extension PTCL fork.
Yeah.
If you don't have that available, we'll use the regular process. We'll serialize the code and actually run it on a regular process. And if you don't have any of those, you will use just basically synchronous stuff. So Laravel concurrency is actually pretty cool. Have you used it already or not yet?
No, I have used fork before, and
it's basically it does use fork behind the scenes. The fork is actually pretty cool.
It's crazy good for what it does. It's like something that is maybe, I don't know, 50 years old. Like let us know if someone knows. It's like super old because it's a very, very deep construct of Linux and OSs. And fork takes the current process, and the idea is that it copies the whole memory and creates another process.
It's insane, yeah.
That is the duplicate of what you have, but it goes on a different line, like the way you write it. But the thing is, so I thought that when you do a fork, it copies the process, but it actually does something, perfect. Yeah, walk us through it, because I haven't done that in a very long time.
Would this be a good example?
Yeah, I think so, because then you have one process and one child process, like parent process.
This is kind of, if you cannot create a process.
Yeah, I think the first one is like, it's an error, so that shouldn't happen.
This code is so complicated though, like realistically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Khudis is saying, I love fork, not all languages is something like this. Indeed, I think the only problem of fork realistically is that it's not supported by Windows, right?
Yeah, and...
It only can be used on the CLI as well, right, I think?
Yeah, in PHP FPM it does like crazy things. I don't think you want to use that in PHP FPM.
So only on the CLI you are allowed to use it?
I'm not sure, so maybe someone can fact check us, but I think if you do that within PHP FPM, I'm not sure something.
Just by the way, Shad, I do understand that this conversation might look a little bit advanced for some of you, because indeed, like when I do stream about stuff, it gets really beginner level stuff. Today, it might get a little bit more advanced. So I hope you guys are enjoying a little bit the content, but it's kind of impossible to be with Matthew and not be geeky about this stuff. So we are literally just
when
geeks.
we take a coffee together, we always talk about things like that.
So so this is literally what we talk about every single day. So it might get a little bit geeky like this. So I hope you guys are enjoying a little bit of this content. So basically this stuff. So you start the fork with PCTL fork, okay? So here, for example, I could potentially start multiple forks if I wanted to. Let me see if I execute this, what actually happens. Oh, so this is starting 5 processes, which is not exactly...
just one, but the second one...
What's up?
You have the parent, just 2 processes, but the second one has a for loop, so it will just You have parent process, child process, but the child does like a for loop with a sleep.
Exactly. So if I have a ped basically, so basically if pgl fork returns a ped, means that I'm in the parent.
What? Okay, can you split the screen, like open the same file twice? If you right click on example.php, you can.
You want me to copy the thing?
No, just split horizontally or vertically. Split
How do
right.
I do that on PHP Storm?
Split right.
Okay.
Yeah, that helps see. So when you run line 6, you have at the beginning you have just the left side, which is like the parent process, let's say. And so you reach line 6, you call fork, and then you have the sub process, which is the one on the right, that will go in the line 16.
This one? Okay.
Yeah, and the first process continues on line 11. So it's really hard to see what happens when you just see linearly, because the code goes into two different.
Because I do get
blocks.
that, but for me, would like a better example. I'm going to close this one again.
Yeah.
A better example would be this one. Like I have a range of 10 things to do, and for each one of them, I'm going to make a fork. Would that even be a good example?
Yeah. Let's give it a try.
Come on, ChatGPT. Come on, ChatGPT.
Do your work.
All right, Victor is saying freak talk. Thank you. Junior is saying I work on a casino. I have a lot of problems with synchronous PHP. I'm learning a lot about Swole to avoid concurrency problems in requests. So as we talk, Swole indeed does support that. So it's pretty cool.
And if you can detail it, I don't know if you can, but if you can write up what the problem is, I would be interested to see like whether Swole is there are scenarios where Swole is like the only option. Sometimes you can use Amphp, sometimes you can use much simpler stuff like the parallel stuff that you have natively in Laravel. So that would be maybe a good use case to
indeed.
if you have some details.
So here I could, for example,
and yeah, you can use on Symfony as well. This is like native PHP. Actually, fork is something that is into Linux and macOS. Like that's something at the OS level. And what actually happens is that I learned that fork is super fast. It doesn't copy the whole memory of the process.
Oh, really?
It creates what they call copy on write. So the new process shares the memory of the old one, but if it tries to change it, then the OS will in real time copy the memory to avoid overwriting the memory of the first process. So it's completely transparent, but that's what makes fork really fast. But if the child process changes a lot of the memory, then it will actually copy most of the memory, and so you don't have the performance benefit. That's something I learned.
So this would be an example, I think, and we need a fucking exit. This is so annoying as well that we need to exit 0 if you went successfully.
If you don't, what happens?
Yeah, so this is what I think is a good example, okay? If you have 10 things to do, and every single one will take a second, so what you can do, obviously you can execute this synchronously, and this would take literally, so if I do PHP example, this will take 10 seconds, because each one of them will sleep for a second.
Yep.
And now, to avoid this, you can use PCNLT fork, which, just check this out, will be literally 10 times faster. No. Why is that?
Because the sleep is in the parent process.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Yeah, forks is only available on Unix.
You see this? This is actually,
oh, sorry, I didn't catch that.
This is actually insane.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my God. What's happening? Oh, I think it's a
yeah,
parent process.
The parent
finishing.
process dies, and then the child process.
Oh, I need to finish. Yeah, I need to finish with the wait thing, right? Yeah, there we go.
What is status? Oh, you wait for the child processes?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
That's why it was kind of winning and then outputting. So this will just work.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah.
So 10 times faster.
Yeah.
It's actually insane, Chad. Does any of you have used fork directly or not yet? Let me know, Chad. Victor is saying, I think forks are only available on Linux. So not on Unix.
Unix.
Yeah. It does make sense.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Tribunal Vivo is asking, can I use this on Symfony too? Yes, you can. This is literally just regular PHP, this fork extension. So you're allowed to do that on anything, really.
Oh, we have some details. Sure. Imagine 400 people watching a live broadcast. That's
Yeah, so Julian is saying, still about his casino situation,
Oh, yeah.
that he has literally a problem about synchronous code because he have more than 500 people watching a live broadcast that someone else is betting. So this is literally something that needs high performance. That's probably why, especially when dealing with money. You kind of you don't want to have.
You have a lot of concurrency, I guess,
Yeah.
at the same time. That's
So Simix is saying it's possible to use fork on Windows if you are using SideGWin. What is that?
Oh, I haven't seen that name in like 10 years.
What is SideGN?
SIGWin.
What is that?
I think I've always said like SIGWin,
Can I Google
which
that
is
real quick?
Linux running on Windows. But I think I don't know how it works. I think like Linux compiled for Windows.
Isn't this like the regular WSL thing?
Yeah, I think that's like the previous version of the WSDL.
Uh-huh.
I know that's what I used to use when I wanted to run PHP on.
But you don't
on
need this
Windows.
anymore, right? You can use WSL.
I don't think you need that. I
Okay.
didn't know it was still active actually.
Is a DLL. Just saying this
DLL.
word DLL reminds me.
So you download the DLL and then you copy that into
Oh
your
my
Windows System32 folder.
Arthur, how you doing? Nice to see you, dude. Luigi is saying that he has used fork in the past. Arthur is saying the following. Can I use this on native PHP then? Sorry, I just came in. Can you explain what we are doing?
Oh, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Can you clarify what native PHP is with the macOS thing and then mobile thing? Because I never know if we are
don't
talking
know?
about the native, like the Mac version, like the desktop apps, or the mobile apps. Like
Yeah, so from my understanding, native PHP is this. So it's this project with two things, okay? Build desktop applications with PHP or build mobile applications with PHP. And I think they started as being something like desktop applications with PHP, but now they are branching into this mobile apps development with PHP, and they have support for iOS, and they are planning to, or they already have Android support as well. So
they do both things then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's have you used React Native?
Yep.
Same stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
So same stuff, literally.
Okay. So then I guess if we are talking about mobile, I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't expect fork to work on iOS because
Yeah.
it's so closed in whatever.
Yeah.
Android, I have no idea.
It's kind of insane though.
But I wouldn't expect the phone OS to provide such APIs, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Okay.
And then on desktop applications, it runs with Electron. So I don't think. Sorry, it runs with Electron, but you have a PHP process. So I would expect you could use fork in native PHP on macOS and on Linux,
Okay.
but not on Windows.
Okay, but
That's what I
yeah,
would expect.
but I in general I think fork is a very sensitive code, like in the sense that when you are creating a subprocess, you may actually not be available to create the subprocess. So thanks to this the PTCL fork thing, it might return actually -1 thing. But in general, it's a very rich API, and I think it might be something really powerful. I'm going to create a segment for YouTube here. So typically something that I do during my live streams is that I literally put everything on pause and I just try to create a segment.
Okay,
So I'm going to do that
nice.
right now. Something I just discovered with PHP is that we have actually a very powerful asynchronous programming extension available for all of us, call it fork. And today I want to show you a very cool example of using fork with regular PHP. So here I have a snippet which performs 10 different tasks. So for every single task I have, I'm going to literally just echo out executing task and then the number. I'm going to sleep 1 second before printing that. And obviously, if I equally introduce here a new line and I go to the terminal and I execute this little PHP example, it kind of goes like you would expect. PHP is synchronous by default, meaning that we have literally executing task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on until we actually execute everything. It takes about 10 seconds to effectively execute everything we see here. Now I'm going to show you something really cool that it's supported natively by PHP, and not everyone knows about this. I'm going to show you. So the only thing you have to do to, instead of taking 10 seconds and process everything at the same time in parallel, is use this extension called fork. So it starts with creating a subprocess with pcnlt_fork. And then if you have actually created that process successfully, you can execute that in parallel. At the very end, you exit once you are done. And at the very end of this, you actually wait for all of the sub-processes to be completed. So let me show you. Now I'm going to clear my terminal, and instead of waiting 10 seconds, I want to effectively wait just one. What do you think about this? This is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff right here. Nice. What do you guys think, chat? Have any of you used fork before? And if not, do you think it is cool or not? Where does the status came from? So the status is actually not something you are sending to the PTCLOL wait. It's something that you are creating as a reference, meaning that I can effectively DD var dump the value under status to effectively know what is the status of the whole situation. So, oh, this is so annoying.
Like you have to declare it before?
No, this is like you cannot anymore send. Nobody knows about this, but you cannot anymore send stuff to the die. So you need
Since when?
Yeah, no, it's annoying. So now I need to do this to not see this error. You see? So the exit code of the parent process was 0. So, anyways, I don't think you actually need to pass this, do I? Let me see. Maybe I don't. Oh, I do need to provide an argument. All right, never mind. Pretty cool stuff. Timur is saying, what about the concurrency of Laravel? Well, concurrency in Laravel is actually using fork behind the scenes. Ryu is saying that for Windows, you can use parallel. What is parallel? Is that
I think that's for running, instead of Cygwin, to run Linux on Windows.
Okay.
I think that's what you meant, using parallel. You know, parallel is for Mac. Maybe I'm completely wrong, sorry, because you have parallel for Mac, which is virtual machines, and so you can run.
It might be that actually. It might be that. It might be that actually.
PHP parallel. The parallel extension, yes, which is now.
What is the parallel extension?
Yeah, that used to be pthread, right? Yeah, good point. That's different. That's something else.
So we have fork and we have this.
Yeah,
do you know what this is?
This one is like the replacement for pthreads. It's about multi-threading.
Oh, which is not what we're doing.
Yeah, the threads.
Which is not. It's a good point.
Which is not forks.
Yeah.
You have so many different layers of.
Yeah.
Like multiprocessor, multiprocessing, multi-threading, concurrency with the event loop. Yeah.
Yeah, you have. That's a good point. Like there is actually multiple ways of doing asynchronous programming. It can be event looping. It can be Go coroutines. Can be kind of multiple things. And this is another thing, which is instead of actually going through separate processes, you are effectively using different threads.
Yeah.
Which is more close to something we would do on Rust or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think Go routines are thread-based as well. And I think the whole you have different solutions. So multi-processing, multi-threading, and then concurrency with the event loop. And each one of those has different constraints. But each one of those is faster than the previous one. With multiprocessing, whenever you switch between processes, like the processor will run processes in parallel, it actually switches context. So it loads a process, runs a few lines, stops the process, unloads it, and loads another one. And like there's a lot of memory switch happening. And I'm not using the right terms, by the way. It's like very messy what I'm saying. But the whole point is it's slower than using threading, because threading, you keep the same process active, you just switch the active thread, and so you have less memory moving around, and it's like a bit faster.
Right, because something like fork, for example, is effectively slow almost on high scale. Like when you actually
it's not
performance,
the fastest. Yeah.
It is slow actually starting a fork.
And this is why we have benchmarks of PHP FPM compared to a Node.js application, where like Node.js people are like, oh, we can handle thousands of connections on a VPS with Node, and then you run PHP FPM, and even though you have great latency, like short response times, you may be able to handle less requests per second on the same hardware, because of PHP FPM uses fork and uses processes instead of keeping everything in the same process.
Yeah, this is something also as well to keep in mind, right? When you actually need but I mean, something that can happen here is that I don't think it's possible actually with this, but sharing the same process, you know what I mean?
Same memory?
Yeah, so for example, on past PHP, I'm actually creating a process, I call it a worker basically, and then sending information to the worker.
Yeah.
streaming information to the worker and then getting the output and keeping the worker warm. So when I have a new test to run on that process, I literally can reuse the process. I'm not using fork, but I'm using just regular processes to do that. And you know, sometimes people ask me why my test suite in parallel is slower than my test suite running sequentially. It's because when you actually have a test suite so small and so fast already, like it runs in less than a second, for example, it's more expensive to PHP to actually create separate processes to run those tests than running all those tests sequentially and not create the processes. So, you know, that's something as well to keep in mind. Mike is saying, I just tried this fork thing on my managed hosting and not working. Yeah, it might be disabled. And again, it's only available on the CLI. Julian is saying, I guess coroutines can run on a single thread, which might be possible, Tuni is asking, there is a certificate for PHP, not that I'm aware of. There is this website I use a lot. Can you type there, Matthew? Just exclamation point Laracas. So if you want to actually, Laracas with the S at the end. There you go.
And that's like magic and it is, wow, nice.
Yeah, here you go. So Laracas is the place where I have learned PHP and kind of everything I know. So if you want to start with PHP, I would definitely recommend you to go to that place. And honestly, they are sponsoring the channel, but even if they weren't, I would recommend you to go there anyways, because I have learned everything through video on that platform. Where did you learn PHP, Matthew? It was like university?
No, I think it was online forums. It was like a long time ago.
Even not that long.
You know, I told you that yesterday, but like the person who introduced me to PHP, because I was doing Visual Basic at the time, and I wanted to build a website to share Visual Basic code source and be able to edit that together, like GitHub, but for just like a single file.
Oh, you told me yesterday, it's your grandpa, right?
And this is my grandfather who told me, hey, you can use PHP to build websites, and it was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so he told me a little bit about PHP, and that's how I got
How badass is Chad, having literally his grandfather teaching him PHP. That's actually very badass, all right? So
and I found like some old books, you know, about learning PHP, the big ones you used to learn PHP with, like the books. Now we have Laracas and we have websites, and that's
insane.
Honestly, that's much better.
All right, Shad. By the way, if you don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro, PHP and Laravel developer, literally streaming about PHP stuff with my very good friend Matthew, who is obviously a key figure on the PHP world. I have developed things, including Bref, but many other packages that are used by everywhere, literally, in everyone. On today's live stream, we actually wanted to equally explore a little bit Amphp PHP. So how different is Amphp PHP from something like Swole or something like Fork?
Yeah, Amphp PHP, you have two options if you want to do asynchronous programming in PHP without an extension and without like using Swole, essentially. You have Amphp PHP, which is the one we have right there, and you have React PHP.
And both are supported everywhere?
Yeah,
like Windows?
Yeah, those don't require any extension, and they work. So they used to work with the feature in PHP called generators, which is the yield keyword under the hood. But then with the newest versions, they switched to the new PHP 8.1 feature, which is called fibers.
Oh, they rely on fibers?
Yes.
So fibers are actually being used?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And fibers is what introduces asynchronous programming in PHP, but it's very low level. It's not like async await that you have in JavaScript.
So it's a low level representation of synchronous programming.
And you don't want to use that in a project most of the time. That's something for package managers. When they work on the RFC in PHP to add fibers, they said, we are designing this API for package developers like React PHP and Amphp PHP. They both worked on that.
Okay. By the way, Shad, does any of you have used Amphp PHP already? Write on the chat if you do with yes, or if you haven't, just type no. Interesting. And you have used Amphp PHP before?
Yeah.
To do what?
So the way I got started with that is I work on a JavaScript project that was like a CLI, very interactive things. And in JavaScript, everything is async await. Everything is awesome to build interactive UX. So you may want to do asynchronous programming on the back end to parallelize some queries and some jobs. That's great. But you also want to use that, like that is really, really good for reactive UIs. And we have in mind like web pages. That's obviously a very good example. But when you build a CLI and when you build like even terminal application or whatever, then having these reactive APIs is super cool. Anyway, so I was writing this thing in JavaScript and I wanted to port it in PHP. And I thought, hey, we have asynchronous stuff now in PHP. That will be fine. That will be easy. And so I got started with Amp, and it was harder than I thought it would be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly because of the, like, this is a whole new universe. The documentation is honestly, like, there's a lot to read, but it's very low level and it can be hard to get started. But you can do very crazy stuff. Maybe you can go into the details, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at this example, which already prompts me to actually build like a percentage, an interactive percentage on a terminal, which might be cool. So let's maybe install this on this project. I just did that. It's installed, and now we can potentially just write an artisan command that uses Amphp. Let's see. So I'm going to go here into routes, console PHP. I'm going to create something like, let's see. I'm going to call this perform. Clean all of this. I need to make this font bigger. Can you guys see anything? I cannot see shit. People rank on me on TikTok because
like a huge
because
font size?
I like to have the huge font size.
Yeah.
Chat, what is your font size? Write on the chat what is your font size and typically use in your terminal.
I think like there's a trick. If you don't want to increase the font size, you decrease the resolution of the screen.
Yeah.
And then everything is bigger and you don't have to say you have a 26 font size.
Yeah, I like to have it like this. And even like this is still small for me.
Yeah. We are getting old, man. That's
Okay, let's call this perform. Let's include artisan all the way top. That's enough. So let's just copy this example and see how it goes, okay? So I'm gonna copy this small example, hemp, async await, bam, bam, bam. I'm gonna put it inside. It should be enough, right? I don't need to import this on top, do I?
I think that's good.
I can make this actually very sexy by doing something like this. Use functions or use function and sync and delay. Yeah, let's do that. Make it a little bit more JavaScripty.
You don't use the shortcuts from PHP Storm to import?
I don't think I do,
I use
no.
that like every day because I'm too lazy to type these things.
Oh, really? Okay, so now I can do this.
Nice.
Nice, nice, nice. Looking better already.
And it looks like native functions now. That looks really cool. These are not native functions. These are from Amp.
Right. So let's just execute this and see like what actually looks like on a terminal, and then probably walk through on this code. So PHP artisan perform. Not bad. So what's happening here? Like, I think I know what's happening, but you know, if you want to explain a little bit, what is async, what is delay?
So async lets you declare a block of code. They call that a coroutine, which is a function that will use some async features. Okay, and we are creating here two coroutines that will kind of execute in parallel, but not really in parallel. This is asynchronous programming, so everything runs in an order. It's just that the delay function, can you replace delay with sleep?
Yeah.
Like the native PHP sleep function?
Sleep one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then?
And same for the second one. Let's maybe do sleep one because I don't think you can use...
floats on the sleep? I could use the uSleep.
Yeah.
Which allows you to...
then you have to do
milliseconds.
Yeah, milliseconds, yeah.
Oh, it's much slower.
Yeah, so now everything runs sequentially. You have the first function and then the second function running.
So this is effectively event looping. Looks like event looping.
Right now there is an event loop running, but there is nothing running in parallel.
Oh yeah. I mean,
we have broken the asynchronous thing.
Yeah. I mean, with a delay, it looks like event looping.
Yes, with the delay. So delay is kind of a sleep, except the delay function, which is provided by Amp, will kind of stop the execution and ask Amp, hey, do you have anything else to run?
Yeah.
And so Amp is like, oh, okay, yeah, I have a second function, like a second async function. Let me run that. And so it runs the second function, goes to delay, and delay is like, hey, Amp, do you have anything else to run? Call me back, like resume in 1 second. So that's the whole thing about delay. And so we can see here that the async keyword is not really important. What is really important, like async is just invoking the function. What is really important is that anything you call in the function needs to be asynchronous compatible.
Event looping ready, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't it be a better name? Because they had like future one. Wouldn't this be better just promise?
They don't use the word promise but it is a promise.
It is a promise, right?
But the one thing you don't have is you don't have a then method on the promise.
That sucks. Oh,
Which
wait, does it suck? I don't know.
I don't think it does because like I don't really like the word then. To me, then why not write that below as the next line, you know?
We have the finally though.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
What is finally?
Well, the
can
finally-
you show up the helper or something?
yeah, well, if the finally is the same thing as the finally in JavaScript, it's executed when something happens.
Oh yeah,
either
whether it succeeds or
either it's whether it's successful or not, it will
Yeah.
just always be executed at the very end.
so it's like then and catch combined. Okay, but then why don't they have then? My
Exactly.
explanation makes no sense
Makes
then.
no sense, yeah. Well, it could make sense if, on JavaScript, you can literally just do it then and then return another promise.
Oh yeah,
Then
maybe
then
that's complex.
and then the parent then will only be executed when, you know what I mean? Tony is saying they don't like then.
Yeah, because you've done that in JavaScript as well. Like you had the callback method, so
Yeah.
it became callback hell,
Yeah.
and then you had the then, and then it became the then hell,
It
where
might
everything was
It
changed.
might become a nightmare, yeah.
Yeah. So now we
Um,
have actually the best of both worlds, I think, because we have linear, like you write your code line after line,
Yeah.
but you can still enjoy the benefits of asynchronous programming.
So this will be echo. Technically, an echo is not blocking. I don't think it is blocking. I mean, it's blocking,
It's
but not blocking
For
enough.
like, yeah, it's blocking for like one.
It's not blocking
Yeah.
enough to be annoying. Okay, so this will be like would probably outcome as well. So yeah, actually, like if I have, for example, this one finishing much faster, like this, will output. Oh, done is on the second one, yeah. Interesting.
Why was done? Oh, why?
Oh, because I'm waiting.
Promise
here.
one, yeah.
I'm
okay, that
waiting
makes
here.
sense.
Probably I need to wait a little bit earlier, which sucks.
And you should, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, await is like the keyword in JavaScript, like await.
Do they have like wait all like JavaScript?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole. Yeah, you have that at the end. I think you have some helpers to await all, but the one thing you can do is just to run the event loop.
Do I
And
need?
so we
do I
do-
need this?
You can. Maybe that's not the right function to use.
Because in my way of thinking,
Yeah, you have an await.
yeah, my way of thinking is that they have this sort of
Yeah.
all thing, and I just combine all promises. Let me see.
Maybe on the future class, or they have a future class.
I don't know. Let's see.
Go in Amp on the left. Yeah, the
This one?
documentation is extremely spread out because they have a lot of sub packages, and so anything that is general or generic is in the Amp package.
Okay, so maybe let's see.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's.
Wait all.
Oh yeah, wait, oh, perfect.
So I just import this function.
Yep.
You mean like all the way top, like this?
No. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's. Oh yeah. Okay. So I can just do this.
Let's try that.
I don't think this function even exists.
Oh, it's not the same namespace. Namespace. Amp
Oh,
future.
amp future. Wait. Oh, okay.
Dude, you have to let PHP Storm do the work. Perfect. And maybe it's an array.
Oh, it's an array indeed. So can I have now this finally on the? You think this?
On the. Wait.
It might work actually.
Maybe this will work. This is weird the way you wrote that.
No, I would. I was expecting it done already on the left.
Yeah, but you added the finally on the promise one.
Yeah, because I want to execute when the promise one is done.
Yeah, but the promise one is the slowest. That's the one you didn't change. You changed the promise to.
Oh, good. Did I?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
You switched it
Yeah,
around.
thank you.
You're missing like a...
There you go. Ari, that's crazy though. That's cool. That's actually cool. Like if I have actually some work to do, I can just do it immediately with a finally. That's actually very interesting. Decent is saying, Amp future, if you want to have access to the wait all. Thank you for the feedback. By the way, chat, are you guys enjoying the content? I know this might look a little bit advanced, and typically on my live streams it gets a little bit into beginner mode because I want to have everyone included. But indeed today it's a little bit more advanced because it's kind of impossible to be with Matthew and not be a little bit geeky. Asil is saying, can you open the terminal window? Your embedded terminal is behind the stuffs in your stream. What do you mean embedded terminal?
With our face, maybe?
No, I think he's talking about like you see this small
we don't see
donation
the whole
situation. Yeah.
No, I think. Oh no, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay, what other things can we do with Amphp PHP? Because this is obviously
that's like this
This is like the biggest thing we can do. Okay.
No, that's the smallest example, like the simplest example. That's
the simplest, yeah.
Yeah, because the whole point of asynchronous programming is, and that's the whole point of JavaScript. It starts from the idea that most applications, they spend most of their time waiting for input and output, like sending database queries, doing HTTP requests, reading from the file system, and all of that. So obviously you have like tons of APIs in Amp, and that's where it gets tricky. The whole idea is if you slap, that's what we did at the beginning, we slap async in front of stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. You have to change everything that is blocking
to non-blocking
into
code.
non-blocking code.
Okay, so that's why they have all of these packages, because this is literally packages that are non-blocking, PHP non-blocking packages to access to things like Postgres or Redis or, I would assume file that is here, file as well.
Yeah.
HTTP equally, DNS, caching. So effectively, all of the blocking code we are using today, we cannot use it. With Amphp PHP, which makes fork more cool in the sense that because fork works with current blocking code. And
multi-threading as well. Multi-threading is you have to install the extension, but then the whole thing continues to work as usual.
Tony, I'm drinking water, dude. I need to hydrate a little bit myself. For this, we say, honestly, you are doing this kind of content. We need more of this. Thank you, dude, for the feedback. Do you think there is any interesting API like this here, or should we jump into other things? What do you think, Matthew?
We can play around with some HTTP requests just to show how it works.
So that would be this one?
Yeah, this
Amp
one.
HTTP?
Yeah. And
so would allow you to make concurrently multiple HTTP requests?
let's get like the homepage of Google and Laravel and whatever and do that in parallel.
So that would be HTTP client then, I think.
Oh yeah, maybe HTTP is just the base thing.
So would this stuff have a delay behind the scenes? I think that's it, right?
That's not really a delay. It's like, so
it is.
You have.
So this, like under the hood, this client is asynchronous in delaying or notifying the event loop that is still getting a request. Wouldn't that be it?
Okay, yeah, I didn't understand the word delay, but it's like, yes, it sends the request and then it says to the event loop.
Yeah.
Like run something else because I don't have the response yet.
Yep.
And I think using curl, that's what Guzzle uses as well. That's what the Laravel HTTP client uses as well. That's what the Symfony HTTP client uses as well. So in curl, you have options to kind of
make it
be called when there's the response. And that's what is being
it's a different package though. I need to include it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's something that you may find annoying with Amp. So when I migrated my CLI again from JavaScript to PHP, I was like, okay, I know about curl, I know about Guzzle or the Laravel HTTP client.
So this is different APIs.
Yes, I installed all my usual stuff. I implemented everything so that it works, and then I'm like, now I want to use asynchronous programming to make it better, and I had to rewrite everything to use these new packages because I needed them to be compatible with the fibers.
That's interesting. People are asking an example where they used PHP asynchronous. So just by the way, Chad, I do think that in 99% of the PHP applications, you don't need this stuff. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is PHP is built for the web, to make websites. You can use stuff like Laravel and Symfony, which are not, asynchronous. However, with PHP FPM, you can literally process requests asynchronously, let's say that, in the sense that you have multiple processes available and ready to serve requests. So I would say that, through PHP FPM and also through Laravel workers, for queue jobs, you actually don't need any of this stuff. However, I assume that there is actually some use cases for this, and that's why these frameworks exist. Not only Amphp, but things like Swole and many others. By the way, on Swole you have Laravel Octane. Have you used Octane before?
Yep.
Yeah, I have Laravel Octane, which is pretty cool if you want to speed things up on the Laravel world.
And I want to point out something, because that what you mentioned is very true. That if we use FPM, and let's say we have two processes, two requests. So we use FPM, we'll have two concurrent requests in two different processes. And let's say instead of that, we use Amphp or Swole, and we have one process handling two requests. We have the same result, more or less. Like the difference will be
in terms of performance.
Yeah, because everything that happens actually, whether it's in PHP with Amp and with the fibers, or it's done at the OS level with FPM, it's the same result. It's like there's a task that needs to use the CPU, so let's run that, and then they're making something that doesn't need the CPU, like making an HTTP request, querying the database. So the process or the function, whatever, is paused, and something else runs instead. So when we use AMP, we are doing the same work that the OS is doing and the processor is doing. Instead, we are doing that natively in PHP.
In PHP, gotcha.
And so the same thing happens, but on a different level in the...
Yeah, it's just different ways of achieving asynchronous programming in
and
PHP.
So that's why I don't like when people say, asynchronous programming is not parallelism. But I disagree with that, because it's like saying multiprocessing is not or multi-threading is not parallelism. It is kind of like both are very similar. Yes, you may have multiple processors in the computer, and so you may be able to run multiple processes in parallel. But at the end of the day, most of what happens is one request comes in, you need 2 milliseconds of CPU, and then you're doing nothing, and so something else runs on the same processor, and it's all concurrency in the end. It's all multi-concurrency. So we don't really care about the difference. What we really care about, the actual impact for us developers. Is it faster? Yes. By how much? Is it harder to maintain? Is it harder to write? By how much? And so is that trade-off worth the cost? And most of the time, you said it, let's just use Laravel. Let's just use the native APIs, and that's fine.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in everything you have said. PHP is literally a language that exists to keep things simple. And honestly, if you probably need this kind of stuff, you shouldn't be using PHP to begin with, in terms of, kind of achieving almost low-level performance. Or
you're writing like crazy stuff. Like I'm sure Marcel Pochot could be using these kind of things to write.
I mean, I use this stuff as well.
Or you could, even for pests or whatever, you could be using that.
On type coverage at the moment, which is something that was very slow, I'm literally now using the fork API to make it like 10 times faster. On top of that, I'm implementing caching for PEST4 as well, so it will be like 1,000 times more faster.
Nice.
Matthew, I want to finish out to see this example, the HTTP example. So I'm going to tell you what I think this HTTP example is. So typically, again, if we were to use something like curl or potentially, the Laravel HTTP facade, this request would effectively block the event loop on the sense that if you were to do something like HTTP GET, the variable, this specific code will only be executed when that request is over, and then the event loop will jump to the second promise and do that behind the scenes. What I do think this Amp HTTP client is that behind the scenes, when you call request and the request is not there yet, it will delay or use something similar to delay.
So the word they use in Fibers is called suspend. It will kind of suspend the execution.
Oh, you think they actually use suspend as well behind the scenes?
Yeah, the word, like the function name in the Fibers is called, like a tab there, is called suspend. No, I mean in the Fibers API in
I know,
native PHP.
but
Okay, sorry.
I was wondering if they have a suspend method as well, because you might not want to deal. There we go, suspend.
Okay.
So they will suspend that same promise, jump to the second one, and execute the second one.
Yeah.
The second one will eventually equally suspend underlying this request method, and then jump back to this one and check. It will be on loop until one of them is actually terminated. So I assume we can just use this. However, PHP Storm is complaining that there is no request object. What is even this? Or
I think we just need to import that.
let me see.
Let's get back to PHP Storm and have that automatic.
Okay.
Like, can you do command enter or I don't know what the...
Typically I do this, I click here and there is like import
nice.
already.
Yeah.
But I think this request is something either specific to them, or is something that we don't have at all. So request, I can actually click on the method and see. Oh, okay, so it's a class from them. Why PHP Storm is not, okay, well, never mind. I'm gonna just include it then. Interesting. Okay. All right, so I can just execute this stuff. Here we go, 200s. And obviously doing this sequentially will be probably twice as slow at least.
Yeah.
Right? And I can have, I can have multiple ones really.
Can you try something? I want to see if it works. I think it should work without the async keyword. I think the request call starts the request, but is asynchronous and non-blocking. So you can remove the whole promise thing.
Like this?
Yeah. I think the response get status is blocking.
If you don't have an async, you mean?
Yeah. And so I would remove...
I would expect the code to throw an exception because I'm not within an event loop, though, you know?
It starts an event loop.
This is very interesting.
And we can see there, we didn't have the parallelization of the requests. Because it's like, get status waits for the response. And so if you move the first get status...
Yeah. So if I do something like this, and this won't be in seconds though. Oh, it will. Interesting. So now if I just uncomment this stuff, this will take about 1 second, right? So interesting.
Yep. But
Jesus
okay,
Christ.
I want to go further. Like I would remove the promise like you had before, and I want to move the first get status call below the second request that we start.
Oh,
so we start the two requests.
It will behave like, I think it will behave like Guzzle, which will actually, this will start the request, but not actually wait. You think?
And so you don't need what I'm trying to say is you don't need to use the async keyword. Anything that AMP proposes is asynchronous.
By default.
Yeah.
But this will effectively kind of wait. Maybe, because I'm seeing this, so it may not
I
actually
don't know.
happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Let's try that.
Yeah, and let me just do a segment real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just basically do this. By the way, Chad, my voice is a little bit broken at the moment. We had a few drinks yesterday, so my voice is kind of broken today. I apologize. So if I do this, we'll take, 1 second, interesting. But then the other is much, much faster. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm ready. Okay. It's kind of insane how easy it is to use Asynchronous PHP with Amphp PHP. And I want to show you a real clear example about how actually using something like Amphp PHP make things a lot faster. So here I'm going to jump into this code, and I'm actually just doing 2 requests. As you can see, I'm performing a request with this HTTP client, and then just below I'm performing another request with this HTTP client. Now, what is the exact problem of this is that we are not actually processing both requests in parallel, meaning that the second one will only be executed when the first one is over. So if I go all the way down, you can see that the total execution time will be about 2 seconds. So it's 2 seconds and 33 milliseconds. Now, let's actually execute and use Amphp PHP to make things a lot faster. So you go all the way top, and you include a bunch of APIs from Amphp, including, and most importantly, the async function, and the wait all to wait for all promises. So I'm going to go all the way down and basically uncomment this code. So I'm going to make the execution of the first HTTP request fully asynchronous, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this promise number 2. So now we have 2 promises in both making HTTP requests. Now all the way down, I want to make sure I execute this await all and provide all of the promises inside to actually await for all of them to be completed. Now if I clear my terminal and I execute this, you will see that we just jumped from 2 seconds to barely 1 second. So this is Amphp chat, and honestly, we can make things a lot faster. And I'm surprised by how good this actually API is. Honestly, the gold key here would still be using my code that I use on Laravel, for example.
Yeah. So
and not have to rely on these APIs behind the scenes. This makes pretty much Amphp kind of. I would never use it on Laravel because it doesn't support Laravel to begin with.
So you know what? What would be great? I would love one day to sit on the same table as a Laravel developer and try to push some feature ID for Laravel.
Okay.
So hear me out. So when they designed the Fiber API, like the native stuff in PHP, they made it really, like it's very clever. You can use it and you can say suspend the current routine and jump to somewhere else. But if you don't use an event loop in a normal application, the code runs the same, it doesn't suspend. So you could add the suspend calls everywhere and make everything in Laravel support and compatible with coroutines, and it would work the same for everyone. But if you use the event loop, boom, it's asynchronous.
Oh, okay, would be transparent basically,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah,
so-
but I mean, Laravel does, the problem would be that you have thousands of APIs in Laravel that use the file system, that use...
But you could start very small. You could start with the HTTP client or the SQL queries. Like one example I have is in controllers. Usually, like a normal controller is you do a request to fetch some data, you do another request to fetch some data, and then you render the view. And the data is only used when rendering the view.
Yeah.
So you have 2 requests, but you could actually run them in parallel, start loading the view, and then render. When you access the data, you have saved a few milliseconds there, and you have parallelized some things. So there are, I think, some
I do see event looping on Laravel coming if it's used, if the event looping is condensed to a few things only. You know what I mean? So instead of having this parent loop that runs at top level, we start by having the Blade compiler its own event loop.
Yep.
That's the only way I see it working, because you could effectively migrate things one by one.
But the thing is that you don't have to let's say you are working on the Blade component, the Blade
Compiler.
code base,
Let's say
compiler,
compiler, yeah.
You're in there and
At
you're
framework level.
Yeah, framework level. So you're adding the suspension thing. You don't need to think about the event loop. You don't need to care where it is. And then-
But what I was trying to say, I don't know if you got it. What I was trying to say is that Laravel could potentially, for example, go to the Blade compiler class and make sure that when we process queries, for example, we have all of this block encapsulated within our own event
Yeah,
loop.
but why?
Would make that code a lot faster.
Yeah, but why do you want to? Oh, you want to optimize that for everyone without people knowing about it.
Exactly. They wouldn't have to think or use event looping. That will be basically like, some portion of the code internally in Laravel using event looping to self-optimize itself. Okay.
But then you would have to have some low-hanging fruits that you can do in a specific part, like the compiler. I don't know if you have. Maybe you have.
There is a few places where we do more than one query. So.
But then why not aim bigger and make the low-level APIs from Laravel?
Potentially. Let's see how it goes.
I'm trying to convince Nuno. Help me out.
All right, Shad. Thank you so much for coming today. Me and Matthew are going now for dinner and potentially, a few drinks and have fun. Was awesome to be with you guys. I hope you guys appreciated this live stream. I'm going to be back home next week to more content as usual. As you may know, I stream every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you enjoy my content, or more in particular this live stream, be sure to give me a follow on Twitch, YouTube, and all of those cool things. That being said, Matthew, thank you so much for this moment here with you guys. I hope everyone have enjoyed the live stream, and catch you guys next time. That being said, peace out.